Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idol, and once again, we've got a Lord of the Rings star calling for even more diversity. And no, I'm not talking about a Rings of Power star. I mean a Lord of the Rings star. Cate Blanchett, the original Galadriel, is now saying, hey, Hollywood isn't diverse enough because there aren't enough folk jumping on that obviously easy to debunk bandwagon. Let's take a look at this article from Variety where she calls for more women and people of color, but not too many of them. I kid you not, there is an aspect to that. Let's get to this article, shall we? Cate Blanchett set a rule for hiring crew after realizing on set there are 62 men and I'm the only woman. You must interview a woman and a person of color. So that's right, only one of each. 62 dudes, but we need a woman and a person of color. Now, here's my question. Is that, 62 dudes, were they all white dudes? Or are you saying, hey, 61 dudes is allowed, at least one of them is black, and then you've got to have one other woman? Like, what are you hoping to gain by just adding one of each of these, little diversity check boxes? Not only that, but why stop at one woman and one person of color? Why don't you throw in there, you need to have at least one gay person, at least one non-binary person, you need at least one cat person. Like where is the cutoff point? Let's read through, see what she has to say, and prepare to cringe, folks. Cate Blanchett debuted her last acting role in The New Boy at the Cannes Film Festival this week, and let's be honest, it did probably get more of a response out of folks than Indiana Jones did, but the Oscar winner wouldn't mind staying behind the camera a bit more. I'm always trying to get out of acting, Blanchett said. I've been trying to stop acting my entire professional life. Speaking at her Carrying Women in Motion talk at Cannes, a conversation with her producing partner, Coco Francini, Blanchett said that her recent producing work behind the camera feels an extension for me of my work as an actor. I remember an Australian film director saying to me really early on in my career that I had to stop taking small roles, Blanchett recalled, and I said, why? I said, that's the most interesting role. I didn't want to play the lead, I want that one. And I'll give her some credit there. There's a few actors that have been known to do this. The Rock, in fact, was known for, in the movie Doom, he wanted to play the bad guy. They wanted him to have the original role as the main hero of Doom, not Carl Urban, and frankly, it's kind of cool that he's like, no, this is the character I'm interested in. I want to play the bad guy. Did it make the movie any better? No, not really, but I guess seeing The Rock with horns was cool for all of, 2.5 minutes. It's about the conversation, she continued, and sometimes that conversation involves me being in front of the lens, and sometimes it's back behind, being a little too bossy, sometimes from behind. Well, would you imagine that, folks? A woman who's too bossy. Sure, you never heard that one before. You sure you want to hire more than one woman for your little productions? I mean, is really just one bossy woman on set enough? Before you know it, you're going to have catfights behind the scenes, movies are going to get delayed because people can't come to agreements on account of you're fighting over things like hair color. I joke, I jest, but really, I don't know if that, I'm sure since I'm reading it, it is played for laughs when she's speaking it. That being said, if you're going to talk about how much you want diversity, maybe not highlight some of your own negative qualities that are, stereotypically come from being female. The facilitation is equally as creative. I'm as interested in the development process as I am in the process of shooting it, and then I'm really interested in the post-process right through to distribution and marketing. Well, how great is your marketing really going to be if all you're doing is fixating on things like gender and race, things that shouldn't matter when we're talking about real qualifications, regardless of those things. If you want to have more women work in film or more black people work in film, yo, I'm all for it, but are they good at their job? That should be the first question anyone is asking. So when you talk about how you're seeing through to the marketing, you got this film coming out, The New Boy. Well, I never heard of it. Where was the marketing on that one, Cate? Blanchett and Francini are partners at Dirty Films, the production company that was formed by Blanchett and her husband, producer Andrew Upton. The New Boy is one of the 3 films that Dirty Films will debut this year, along with Shida, which won the Audience Award at the Sundance Film Festival, and Apple TV's Fingernails from director Christos Nikau. Alright. Now we really gotta talk about marketing. You're putting out a movie for Apple TV. Who uses Apple TV? Yes, that's right. I'm sure that Chris Evans rom-com movie that was on Apple TV, Ghosted, that did so well. And I gotta imagine the marketing was just spot on. Maybe you should not be very interested in marketing, Cate. That's all I'm saying. Dirty Films was behind the FX series Miss America, which is where Blanchett and Francini first met and began their producing partnership. On Miss America, or Mrs. America, my apologies, Blanchett and Francini hired mostly female directors and crew members. And again, did anyone watch this show? I'm not saying that women cannot be directors and crew members, but did that help the show with any sort of popularity? Maybe the ratings are good. In fact, let's take a look. Okay, a 96% critic score. Not that we should care too terribly much about what the critics say, but a 70% audience score. Fair enough. I'll give you some credit there. Don't really know about the box office, but hey, if folks enjoyed it, fair enough. Now, I won't lie, I never heard of it, but hey, it was 2020. Maybe some pandemic stuff had to do with that. It is still an ongoing series, so who's to say? But I think my point does still stand. On that set, they decided their mandate moving forward will be for all projects would be you must interview a woman and you must interview a person of color. So it's not even that they have to hire them, they just have to interview them. You could still hypothetically end up with a crew of entirely 62 straight white dudes, but as long as you interviewed folk of color and women who like to sleep with other women or whatever, yeah, that's good enough. Again, I don't understand this because if you're interviewing, let's say, you want to interview a woman or interview a person of color, isn't asking that like against the rules? Granted, those aren't things you have to ask. You can visually look at someone and tell whether they're a person of color or whether they're a woman. Well, maybe not the woman part of me considering the trans movement nowadays. But the point is, asking those things and not hiring based on those sort of things, is that not a fireable offense? I'm pretty sure that that's a violation of rights. So I just don't understand who they think they're helping or what they're doing with this. Folks should be getting their job on the basis of their own merit. Are you working hard enough? Are you good enough at this job? There are plenty of fantastic people behind the camera of all different walks of life. But you should worry about their skill when it comes to making a project, not is their skin dark enough for me to get myself a pat on the back for internet clout. Blanchett and Francini are proud to run a company that showcases women, international filmmakers, and diverse voices. For Blanchett, she recalls a time in her career, not too long ago, where she would look around to be the only woman on set. With her work as a producer, she's hoping to change that. And you know what? If you're the producer, fine. That means you're financing it, you're paying for it, go for it. But are you doing it for the right reasons? Because therein lies the question. If you're doing something good, but for the wrong reasons, do the ends justify the means? That's obviously been a very long-running question, honestly, throughout human history, not just talking about film. In my opinion, no. If you're not doing it for the right reasons, then why are you doing it? And you're doing it for entirely selfish reasons. You're doing it for optics. And no, that's not good. Because again, there are plenty of diverse individuals both in front of and behind the cameras. I don't know why Variety is making this out to be a big deal. Cate Blanchett, I'm sure, doesn't actually care about this. She knows it's the hot, hip, new, trendy thing to talk about, so she gets the opportunity to have a platform at this interview at the Cannes Film Festival, and she just wants to make this spiel to her woke, progressive colleagues. That way people are like, hey, let's hire Cate Blanchett more. Because let's be honest, when was the last time you saw her in anything? I mean, I can't think of anything of note save for like, what was it? 2010's Robin Hood with Russell Crowe. I'm sure she's been in stuff since then, but what was the last big thing? Someone help me remember. We've both had experiences where we walked on set and done the head count, and you wonder why you sort of slightly feel alienated and annoyed some days, Blanchett said. I realize that I'm the only woman in the cast, and there are 62 men, and yup, I'm the only woman. Well, maybe it's a cast of mostly males. Is it a mostly male story? I don't necessarily think she's talking about Lord of the Rings here, but that being said, would it surprise you if she wasn't? The Lord of the Rings films, some of the most famous and best movies of all time, pretty predominantly male cast. She was absolutely one of the very few women in those stretch of movies. That being said, that was the story that was written. If you do not want to be a part of a production that is, mostly males, then don't audition for it. Don't you read the script and realize, hey, there's only 2 chicks in this, I'm gonna pass. And that's fine too. You got the freedom of choice. But if you're the only woman, that should be a good thing to you, because that means, wow, there was one female role to audition for in this whole movie. One female role. I beat out every other female with my audition. Like, it's not like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has several male roles. That means it was a lot easier to choose the male actors on account of there are more of them. But you gotta pick that one perfect female role, and she nailed it. I would look at that as a sense of accomplishment. This ratio is bad. Why is it bad? Why is the ratio bad? If the story calls for more males than females, why is it bad? I love the movie Steel Magnolias. Steel Magnolias, great movie. Is the ratio bad in that? Because there are far more women than there are men in that movie. No, it's a movie, honestly, mostly made for women. I still love it, whatever. The point is the ratio bad when it's flip-flopped? Why is the ratio bad? Or do you think you can just get enough brownie points by saying, thing here that is not diverse enough equal bad? It's really disproportionate, and it means you're always laughing at the same jokes. I do have a really good sense of humor. I don't know, it doesn't really sound like it with some of the stuff you're talking, but it's like, let's change it up. I look forward to the day where we don't need to have interviews about women in cinema, Blanchett added. We don't need to have them now. There's plenty of women in cinema. There have been women in cinema for ages. A lot of them in larger directorial programs and positions. We don't need to have this now. The fact that you're having this interview now is because you're making this up. You're concocting it. And again, if you want to talk about women or whatever in the movie space and cinema, you're free to. It's not like anyone's saying you can't have this conversation. But the fact that you're making it like it's some sort of trial, like you're like, oh, I'm the victim. No, you're not. You're a multimillionaire. You got your own production company that's putting out films. You don't have to have this conversation. You could simply, actions speak louder than words this stuff and show that your films have, diverse casts both behind and in front of the camera, and let those actions speak louder without having to do the interviews. You could put out 3 movies, all of them with 3 directors, all of them with 3 female directors, and then not do a single damn interview about it. And you know what? You wouldn't need to have the interview because those actions spoke louder than words. But by drawing attention to it, you come off as so much more disingenuous about talking about a problem that doesn't actually exist. Francini said that even with the progress for women in the entertainment business, it's still undoubtedly harder for a woman to get a film financed. We're not there yet, she said. We make films for an audience. We'd love for our industry to look like our audience. We're not there yet, but I think we're making progress. Okay, maybe you're having trouble getting your film financed because you're making movies about things that folk don't care about. I mean, Charlie's Angels, that movie, the most recent remake, didn't exactly make a lot of money. A woman got it financed, but it did not hit the box office. Why? Because it wasn't something folks were interested in, especially after those behind the film, or those behind the scenes of the film, were trash talking the male audience, saying this isn't for you, then getting mad when men didn't show up. Well, you spent the entire time marketing, again, which Cate Blanchett says she loves, maybe she'll learn how not to market that way, but if you spend your entire time marketing, alienating 50% of an entire, population of humans, yeah, you're not going to have men show up to your movie, and your movie's going to underperform. So if you want to make movies and get them financed, do it to cater to an audience that actually has some dollars behind it. Finance is money. If this movie is still a business, it needs to make money. If you want to get a movie financed, make a movie about a subject that you think people will pay for. It's hard to get paid as an actress, Blanchett chimed in. Okay, here's what we're calling total and complete bullshit. Hard to get paid as an actress? Then why are there so many actresses out there? People are saying, oh, Chris Hemsworth, they paid him, but they didn't pay me. Sorry, Susie Q, sit down. I'm sure you got paid. What do you mean it's hard to get paid as an actress? Warner Bros. Isn't just sitting there being like, I'm gonna withhold this girl's paycheck simply because she got a vagina. That's not happening. What do you mean it's hard to get paid as an actress? Maybe there is some sort of meaning that maybe some contextually it would make more sense if I listened to it, although I highly doubt it. It does seem to be a word-for-word quote. But harder to get paid as an actress? Do you mean harder to get paid more money? Well, then we can have a discussion. We can have a talk about, the pay gap, which doesn't exist. There's very easy ways to debunk that. But hey, at least that could be the conversation. But you didn't even word it like that, so I don't know if it's what you mean. Because you make it sound like studios are just saying, you got titties, you don't get change. I think transparency is really important. We always talk about money like we shouldn't be talking about money. But why don't we talk about money? Really? Because that's all you Hollywood folks seem to talk about. Either money or politics and then all that weird political and social stuff in between. It's all about money and weird agenda-driven politics. Those are the only things you talk about. What do you mean you don't talk about money? Didn't Scarlett Johansson very openly talk about money when Disney screwed her on the Black Widow film? Yeah, I think I agree money should probably be talked about more because I don't like this culture of you don't talk about how much money you make, you're not supposed to do that, it's a bad thing. That being said, when you're making it a gendered issue, once again playing that disingenuous victim card, you don't have much a leg to stand on when you're clearly successful at what you do. You have your own production company. You're being interviewed about being a woman in film. It makes no sense. You got what you want, but you're still throwing a fit about it. Blanchett continued, we're open about all the other aspects of the process. I think the more transparent all that stuff, the more you can work out how the money is flowing, where it needs to flow, and where it's not flowing yet. Well, here's the thing. Money isn't everything. Money does not make a good film. The bigger the budget does not necessarily mean the better the film. Look at Disney and all their flops as of late. These several $100 million MCU movies that, let's be honest, suck. And Disney knows they suck. That's why they are losing. That's why there's no return on the investment. I mean, Did anyone see Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania? Oh no, that's right, it flopped. Let's talk about hiring individuals who are good at their job and just making a good product that most people want to see. Now, granted, not every movie is for everyone. Most folk like me probably aren't the target demographic for Steel Magnolias. I'm going to loop back to that. I'm the minority of young males that probably enjoys Steel Magnolias, but damn it if I can't get enough of Dolly Parton. The point is, when you're making a movie or a project that you love with no thought process behind an agenda or we must do this or that for any sort of political or sociological messaging, you're gonna have yourself a product that, even if it doesn't make a lot of money, you're at least hopefully going to find some sort of niche audience that wants it, and your budget should match that of said niche audience. But yeah, that's about that, guys. I mean, here we are. We thought that only the Rings of Power cast could be woke. But I mean, maybe we didn't think that. We also saw the original Lord of the Rings cast jumping in on the hate bandwagon when there was supposedly so much racism about the Rings of Power. But don't get me wrong, I'll still take Kate Blanchett as Galadriel over what we got in Rings of Power. But yeah, it was just another Hollywood weirdo trying to virtue signal and talk about things that we all know to be false. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments below, or let me know on Twitter where you can find me at Bolt the Word. And please do subscribe. We are almost to that 1,000 subscriber mark. I mean, I couldn't believe it. We could hit it by the end of the month. That'd be my goal. So please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I do nerdy news every day. Not always about movies, video games, anime, Magic the Gathering, you name it. It's all here in the nerdosphere. And this has been Words of Paradise.